All right, podcast, let's skip the preamble and just give you an update. It is the 2nd of December, so it's about time for my annual Christmas message. Christmas message of joy. I say that sarcastically, because fuck Christmas. I say fuck Christmas not because of any one thing or the tradition or any sort of latent atheism or anything like this. I say fuck Christmas because the act or the holiday season itself can cause quite a lot of pain and trauma and overwhelm and just exposure to people and things that you would otherwise not. Every shop you go in, every person you talk to, all your work events, all your family events, it's like, hey, let's do something. Here's a social obligation to do something. And that's great if you are one of the, I don't know, I'll say perhaps majority maybe, who has an alright family, who has good connections, who has the ability to let down and release and relax and, wants to celebrate. But for the subsection, and I say subsection lightly because I don't know the stats, but I know that a lot of people struggle. For those of you, for us, for me, for many people in my audience, the holiday season fucking sucks. And, I'm one to add information to the source, but not reference myself properly. But I do know that around the holiday season, issues of abuse, issues of self-harm, issues of suicide, issues of drug use, all of these things skyrocket. And it skyrockets because there's this obligation, this pressure, this push to be around people that you otherwise wouldn't. We're sort of pushed into these spaces and these places based on some sort of obscure notion of obligation. So every year I put out a Christmas message of basically saying, hey, protect yourself at all costs, guard your mental state at all costs. You don't have to turn up to these events if it's going to cost you. You can say no, and you should say no if it's going to detract. And yes, the act of saying no needs to come with a level of strength, and the act of saying no needs to be verbalized early, and it will come at a pushback and you will be letting people down. But ultimately, if you don't stand up for yourself and don't pick and choose to do what you need to do over the holiday season to survive, the main person you'll be letting down is yourself. And you'll have yet another Christmas season in which you are wearing the mask, faking it, and just surviving until the end of the year. I, for one, have given up on that. This season particularly, I am just saying no. Saying no to the things I don't want to say no to. Sorry, that I do want to say no to, and yes to the things that I want to say yes to. So I am going to be doing some things, but I'm not going to be doing everything, and I'm going to be very picky and choosy. And there are certain people in my personal life that at some stage, members of the family that I would see every year, and due to various reasons in which ostensibly they can't handle the truth of the trauma that I've gone through and the implications of that in my mental state and my life, I don't want to see them, so I'm not going to. I've had issues and arguments with particular people where they've accosted me for hours on end, basically going through the whole cliche of if you had like the bingo card of what you should and shouldn't say to someone that is coming out with you saying, hey, I've got a history of abuse, this happened to me. Things you shouldn't say, it didn't happen to you, or it wasn't that bad, or other people have it worse, or you should have spoken up, or, just pick every single cliche. And I've had that argument with a couple of these people multiple times to no avail. And I went through these discussions, these arguments, these victim-blaming sessions with the hope that perhaps I could convince them of the truth and the validity of my claims and the reasons why I'm like the way I am and all of this sort of stuff. But ultimately, all those things served to do was to validate their perspective of me and prove to them that I am a broken person, but not enough, or not giving them the empathy to help. I've realized that trauma and neglect and all of these things are cycles and like multi-headed hydras, and the implications and impacts run deep and run into every aspect of your life. It's like a tendril of like cancerous, amorphous blob just infecting everything else. If you've been neglected, you weren't taught how to look after yourself, right? Because you were never shown and modeled that. Thus, you continue neglecting yourself. If you were abused, the inner voice becomes the voice of abuse, and thus you abuse yourself long after the abuser is gone. You put yourself in situations that they put you in, and you do it to yourself because that voice is now in your head. At least this is my experience, and what I'm learning through my Master of Counselling course is that we just repeat these cycles, and until you start and learn to say no, well, it keeps happening. So I, for one, am saying no. I'm saying no to the things and the people and the events and the circumstances that I'm going to want to say no to, and just saying yes to the things I want to say yes to, taking away all of the pressure. I've long since said that trauma is a multi-headed hydra. You kill one head, you defeat one head, you beat one boss, and then another one pops up. It's really interesting. I've been going through TMS, transcranial magnetic stimulation. I've been doing psychology. I've been doing meditation. I've been reading about internal family systems. I've been seeing a physiotherapist to look into the physical aspects of the body, keeping the score. And just recently, this last month, my anxiety has all but disappeared. It is gone. I don't have anxiety anymore. Well, I would say that, 97 to 99% of the crippling anxiety that would rife and rampage through my body is gone. I had this part of my body, my left lower belly, that would just be tense and on all of the time, holding this bodily anxiety. And it's gone. Huzzah. Yay. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I'm free. I'm better. But alas, the multi-headed hydra that is trauma pops up, and, trigger warnings. I don't know, I should always say trigger warnings on my podcast, but whatever, we're here for it, aren't we? The feelings that I've got, the trauma memories have unlocked, and I've started to remember aspects of my past that I thought I didn't have access to, that were black, that were gone, that were buried. In my first book, Under the Influence, Reclaiming My Childhood, I wrote a chapter called Blackness. And in that chapter, I described the fragments of memories of the worst of my abuse. And I'll link you to it. It's not, that whole book is not a great read. Just as a side tangent, when I first released it, I shared it with a friend who's like, well, this won't be commercially viable. But when you become commercially viable, people will want to read it because it'll tell them the story of your past. And, I wrote it as an act of writing therapy, so I'll link you the chapter, but it's, fair warning, the whole book itself isn't an easy read. But I know that some of you, a subsection of you, are reading that book and have connected to it quite thoroughly. So it is for you that I share it. But basically, I shared in that chapter the memories the fragments of a memory that I had, and I've spoken to many psychologists about it. And they basically said that one of them gave me some good advice. It was like, you're feeling this black hole, this darkness, this memory with the worst possible outcome. And you don't know what's in that darkness. And I sat with that solace of that idea for quite some time. However, now that the anxiety is gone, now that my belly has been released, my physical bodily awareness has moved down lower, and I've got a physical sensation in my body that is quite representative of the trauma memories that I've clearly repressed. And the memories and the body feelings are coming back. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And, I share this with you now, both as a lead into Christmas. Like this is me leading into Christmas. This is me leading into the festive holiday season, because who are the people that most likely are likely to abuse you? Who are the people that are most likely to neglect you? Who are the people that are most likely to cause the major forms of physical pain, statistically speaking? Those are the closest to you. And that's a lot. It's a lot to take in. So it's like, okay, how do I square away these feelings and these memories that are arising with the holiday season, with looking after myself, with all of these things. Because I realized something about myself. And the reason why I'm pushing down this path of saying no to what I don't want to do and saying yes to what I do want to do is that I know, based on my past, based on my trauma, I have never said no. I've never said no to sexual advances of potential partners, no matter how undesirable they are to me, no matter how repulsed I am by them as a person or a personality or their physical body or just the idea of doing something physical with them. If someone was saying that they wanted to be with me, I felt obliged to say yes, and I didn't have the capacity to say no. It's like I couldn't give myself consent. The concept of consent was taken away. And on the flip side of things, I have never, not once, proactively engaged in a relationship that I wanted to. In the sense of, I've not seen someone and been like, hey, you want to go on a date. And this is applied to work. This is applied to physical romantic relationships. It's applied to every aspect of my life. It is very, very hard for me to say no. And very hard for me to push for the yes for what I want. Conversations triggering overwhelm, people just trauma dumping. I've recently put up on my website my beliefs, what I believe in. I was talking to my psychologist about it. Going through, leaning into a process of EMDR, and part of that process is to work out some core memories and core meanings of those memories and the tendrils and the connections between them, and going down this path of consent, of abuse, of sexual trauma, all this stuff. And she asked me, well, what are your core beliefs? And my first core belief is, I believe in informed, enthusiastic consent in all things. If you and everyone involved are not saying fuck yes to an idea, event, or action, it's a hell no. And the moment she asked me to say it, I was like, oof, yeah. There's a thing that happens with trauma that you become defined by it. There's no wonder that I share what I share. There's no wonder I do what I do. There's no wonder I study what I study. Because you struggle to make sense of the things that happened and you become this wounded healer. I look at this idea and I sort of label myself as a shadow hunter. And there's depths to the shadow. I talk about doing this process of intuitive guidance with people where we connect and we delve into the parts of ourselves and visualizations come up and we heal. And it's like from this place of deep understanding of my own pain, I can help guide you through yours. But it's like, how can I guide myself through these pains? I've had this realization that this feeling that I've got in my body now, this deeper aspect of pain, I just want it to end. I want that multi-headed hydra to end. And I've got this realization that I keep looking to the external for support, and I'm going to keep doing so. But ultimately I have to heal myself. I have to choose to heal. I have to end that multi-headed hydra once and for all. With self-love, self-acceptance, internal intuitive guidance, with the engagement with the EMDR and the TMS and all of the other acronyms that you go through. Healing is hard. Healing takes a long time. And it's not an easy journey, and I've realized that the analogy of a invisible illness is apt. The last few years have been the worst of my life, but I'm quote unquote better, more functional. I'm not breaking down right now. I released a book called Poetry from the Dark Night of the Soul, and it sort of chronicles the poetry that I wrote during that time. And you see the, shared by date, so you can see the ups and downs of that process, and it's a lot. But if I had a physical illness, there'd be a recovery time. If you're in a car crash, you've got physical rehab recovery time. It takes time. And perhaps there should be an understandable rehab time for a mental breakdown. But how long is enough? because I've realized that illnesses are invisible even to yourself. I don't know myself fully. I don't know my triggers fully. I don't know how much I need. I don't know how brittle I am. I just know that over time or eventually I break, and I break down again and again and again, and I need to, take Valiums, take days off. The amount of money that I don't have access to because I can't consistently work, because I can't find an external employment, because I need to spend so much time just not wanting to end it all, is so much. And I know that I'm in no way alone in this suffering. And I guess part of what I'm doing here with this podcast is sharing this truth. It is a dark truth. The dark truth and dark reality that a lot of us face is that we feel so fucking goddamn alone in our suffering. These feelings that I'm describing here, I know there is a lot of you that are feeling the same. And these feelings pop up more and more over Christmas because you are forced to come back to your childhood homes. You are forced to interact with your abusers. You are forced to face the fact that you don't have family that gives a shit or cares, or that you don't have people that want your company, despite the idea that you might want it. It is confronting. It is overwhelming. It is so goddamn much. And then you go into a shop and there's these garish, ungodly, bright red advertisements and festive food and seasoning all around, and then Mariah Carey screaming over the speaker system, and everyone's like, "Merry Christmas," and you're like, "There's nothing fucking merry about this time. I just want this month to end." So then I release this same podcast every year. I share these same feelings with you. I share these same stories with you, just with a bit more nuance and a bit more depth. And who's this for? Who is this podcast for? Well, it's for me. I share this for me because, perhaps speaking into my microphone right now, it's a way to have some healing and some clarity and some solace. But I'm also speaking to you, and I'm going to wrap this up now, but I do want to ask, if you are listening to this, please message, please connect with me on social media and say, "Hey, I got your Christmas message." I want to know that I'm speaking not just to myself, that people are feeling the same way that I'm feeling. Because perhaps that way I'll feel less alone, and perhaps that way you'll feel less alone as well. Either way, I'll put a link to the chapter of the book and to whatever else I mentioned here. The summary is stay safe this festive season. Say no to what you need to say no to, and say yes to the things that you want to. Protect yourself, protect your mental state, guard your mental state at all costs, and reach out. Yeah. Merry Christmas.